including to give input on to students on how to prepare for XAT and what exactly they can expect from XAT 2024. Right. A very warm welcome to you, sir, and thank you so much for spending your time with us for this session.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to come on your platform and talk to students.
Correct. So right away, what can we expect from XAT 2024? Right. So across all the MBA exams that we have seen, the number of registrations have increased for CAT, number of registrations have increased for SNAP. Is it the case for XAT also? And if the number of registrations did increase for XAT, can we expect XAT to be a multi slot exam?
So currently we are still on. Registrations are still on. Registrations will get closed on December 10th. So it's very difficult to tell you the exact figure, but obviously our numbers are on a higher side this year, and we have done exceptionally well this year. We'll report that on 11th to media. At the same time, we will try to keep our exam in a single slot, which has already been told. It will be a post lunch exam, right? Because in North India, it's always very difficult to take exams early morning, especially during winter. So it will be a single slot exam. As we do, it's on 7th post lunch, so that everybody can come and take over. And it's a 3 hour, 30 minutes exam.
Okay. Thanks. So from what I can take, so the number of registrations have definitely increased from XAT 2023, and we can expect maybe higher competition in this year. So, uh, so XAT an exam, right? So it is quite different from CAT or any other entrance examination. You have essay portion, you have DM portion. So how exactly what exactly is the role of DM and essay portion in the XAT exam, and how can students prepare for these specific sections of XAT?
Okay. So I would say that students should not get worried. If you are preparing for CAT, a little more effort will help you also do well in XAT. It's not so difficult as students believe. Students believe that XAT is always a tough exam to take. Actually, if you go through our previous year's question papers, right, especially in last 7 to 8 years, we have tried to make our paper according to the understanding of students. We try to keep that also in mind, so earlier also we were doing it, but definitely earlier the paper was on a difficulty level was on a higher side, but for last few years we have tried to keep the thing simple at the same time analytical. And that is why we keep saying that if you think during the exam, right? If you can think from different perspectives, if you can try to understand the objective of why that question has been given, what is the examiner trying to test, you can actually easily crack it. So that idea is there. And when it comes to, for instance, decision making section, this thinking part is tested like anything. So if you're, for instance, good at problem solving skills, if you can tease out what is important, you can sift what is unimportant from what is important, you can understand how many people are involved, what roles they are playing, what objectives are involved, you can easily understand what we are trying to check or what we are expecting you to answer. So it's a process of thinking. The way we take decisions in our life, we have to try to use the same approach. But obviously, you cannot stick to one plan that I have to always target decision making questions, for instance, from ethical perspective or from prioritization perspective. You will have to sometimes mix these. Sometimes you have to rely on one, but there are other ways also to take decisions, right? Not always that you have to rely on ethics. So if you can on the toes think and you can actually arrive at the optimal or the answer which works in that scenario, you are good actually in cracking decision making.
Okay. So some of these decision questions, right, they are set in the corporate environment. So how will it be a disadvantage to any fresher who did not have any corporate exposure to for answering those questions?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that, Shrikant. So when we create a scenario where it's, for instance, a business setting, a corporate setting, uh, definitely situation appears to be a corporate setting. Situation appears to be that something is happening in a workplace, but the decisions are very simple. And we always try to focus that whenever there is a scenario we are giving in our exam, students should not use knowledge which is actually a hardcore business knowledge. We know that there are lots of students who are freshers who have just come out of their colleges, they are applying for B schools. They should not get confused, but yes, something which you are handling at a regular basis, right? Like for instance, even the way you decide on which college to choose, the way you decide on, for instance, should I go with education, higher education, or should I take up my job? We keep that kind of scenario in mind. Even if it's a corporate scenario, the simple principles of decision maker making are applicable. Hardcore business decisions are not given deliberately because we don't test knowledge. We try to test if people can or students can handle decision scenarios and do they follow a structured approach. So even if you are a fresher, don't get worried. Questions are doable. The only strategy you will have to keep in mind is that not only there are lots of other strategies, but one very important strategy is that you will have to think when you are solving. Right? Don't jump on on an answer based on just, for instance, what you think is right. Read the stem, read the substem of the question, and try to connect the dots. If you do that, you will actually be able to, mostly you will be able to find the right answer.
So you're advising an analytical approach to a decision problem.
Yes, correct. Analytical at the same time, learn to connect the dots. Don't forget any information, important information given in a main stem.
Okay. So one more section that that has different is the GK section, right? So how exact what can student expect in the GK section? Will it be static or will it be current affairs? What if it is current affairs? What till what domain should they expect the questions to come from?
Right. So this year in our XAT overview 2020-24, if you have seen that document, which has already been posted on our website, in that we have told that we will have 15 current affair questions and 10 static GK questions, right? Obviously, current affairs are current affairs. Mostly we try to keep those questions in general knowledge section, which you should know when, for instance, you are living in India, right? Or if you are preparing for competitive exams like XAT or other B school exams, at the same time, you are mindful of what is happening around you, what is affecting our economy or world economy, or how what is going on in business world. So things which you have to be aware of because they are affecting you directly or indirectly, or the domain you are trying to target. That is getting, if that is that particular information is affecting the domain you're trying to target as a career, obviously you should know about it. Right? Like I want to get into a business and I don't know where India stands when it comes to GDP, then I'm a problem student, right? So I'm
Correct.
just giving an example. So there, if you're aware, you will be able to answer. We are not expecting you to be very good at knowing everything, right? But at least those fundamental things which a student has to know when he or she is coming to a B school, right? Obviously we try to test that, so that helps us understand which students can actually stand out in our classes, right? Not that they just have to talk about what is, for instance, in a case scenario, but they can relate that case scenario with what is happening at, for instance, at a level of where Indian economy stands, or at a level of where international economy stands, or what is going on when it comes to, for instance, a war is happening somewhere. So if they can connect the dots, they will be able to make right decisions for their company, and it will be useful to them. So that is what is the idea behind giving general knowledge.
Oh, that's great, sir. So one more aspect that that differs is the negative marking for unattempted questions. So let's say if a student is indecisive whether he or she should go for the attempt, right, or leave it off. So what will be your advice?
So we see we have a different kind of negative marking policy, right? You will be given a negative mark if you're attempting a question and you go wrong. At the same time, you cannot even skip questions, right? So the idea is that uh, you cannot choose your options left, right, and center, question answers left, right, and center without knowing. At the same time, we also don't want you to get discouraged and you stop attempting completely. So you should attempt whatever you believe can be handled by you. Please do attempt. Please try to take a risk. But whenever you realize that that is not a cup of tea for you, or that question is not or cannot be answered by you, it is okay to leave. So we keep reminding that don't leave questions after every 8 questions. At the same time, anything you are uncomfortable with, we are not expecting you to know everything in the paper. So if you're uncomfortable with any question, you're free to leave it. But I would say that please do practice before you come to take that. Do enough practice so that you don't get into this dilemma whether to take it or leave it. All right. I would say that you should take all the questions really well and do well and come to either XLRI, Delhi, Jamshedpur, or other our great associate schools. Any of those great associate schools like TAPME, Great Lakes, Wellinka, KJ, any of those schools you should definitely join.
Okay, sure. So one more thing that we have is like ZAT does not have any individual sectional timings, unlike CAT, right?
Right.
So how exactly should student be able to like manage the time across sections, and how will there be any sectional cutoffs that students should be wary of?
There is definitely sectional cutoff for XLRI. We do that right for here. But the idea behind not putting a timing for a particular section is that students feel should feel comfortable when they are taking the exam. Our exam is actually longer than other exams, other competitive exams for B schools, right? So we want people to take time. Whatever your strength is, you can use that strength in the beginning or towards the end, whatever you are comfortable with, and you can decide on what how much time do you want to give to a particular section. If you are good with verbal, for instance, and you believe that I can handle verbal in just 30 minutes, then and you believe that quant will take more time for you, you can start with quant so that your time is not squeezed. Or if you believe, no, no, I want to start with verbal because I'm very good at it, so let me be confident with doing verbal, so you can start with verbal, right? You can then switch to quant, and then towards the end you can start with decision making. Or for instance, you are good with decision making, so you can start with decision making. So that is the objective, that you decide what you want to do, because at the end of the day we want you to become responsible leaders for your companies, right? And we want to test your decision making skills over here as well, right? One is that we are trying to map through our decision making section. At the same time, we also want you to learn that what do you want to prioritize in a particular scenario. So, objective is to learn, because even when we make our question papers, we have this intention that you should not feel that exam is over so you forget everything about it. Even when exam is over, we always try to keep such passages, such poems, such questions, that there is some takeaway for everybody when they've gone back home, right? There's some message for them.
Okay.
So that is what we want, because we cannot take everybody, right? Like there's always a score, and then a few can make it to schools, a few will have to take the exam again. But those who cannot make it, they should not have this feeling that I've lost everything. There should be some learning, right?
Correct.
So that is what we try to do in our exam.
Great. So, you SAT, I think, as an exam is like quite different from other exams. So we have poems coming in. So no other exam has poems in it, right?
Correct.
And we have DM, then we have this negative marking. So it's a complete different experience for the students, right? So given that how different the exam is, right? How should students prepare for this exam?
So first I will tell you why we are like this. We try to assess our students comprehensively, right? I'm sure because you are a part of Krakow, you know that there's a lot of debate going on, diversity in classrooms, right?
Correct.
Engineers, non-engineers, and lots of other aspects of diversity are getting explored, right? We want to make a question paper where students from all walks of lives, right? If they, for instance, I'm an art student, right? I'm from humanities. I should not feel uncomfortable when I'm taking that, right? Like for instance, if you take our decision making section, anybody can attempt. It doesn't matter whether you are an engineer or a non-engineer, right? Obviously engineers have an advantage. They, for instance, when it comes to numbers, they have an advantage, they are good at it, right? Right. So if somebody is good with, for instance, other things, that person can score well in other sections as well. So we try to balance out, right? We want engineers also, and we want people from other streams as well. We want everybody to come to XLRI, right? So to actually give opportunity to everybody and to assess students comprehensively, we do that. Like when we give poems also, there is an objective behind giving a poem. Everybody can understand prose, but in your actual life, do you stick only to prose? You have to understand poetry, right? There's a huge music industry. Why do we listen to music at all if it is useless? Obviously it helps you, right? When you're working with people, you're not working with machines, you are working with people. At the end of the day, are humans, right? You can understand their analytical aspect, you can use the analytical aspect to grow in your business. At the same time, there is a creative aspect, there is an emotional aspect. Can you understand that part as well? Because you have to get the work done, but you also have to take care of your team members. Sometimes they're emotional, sometimes they are low, sometimes they feel not so great. If you're a great leader, you will have to take care of all those aspects. And that is why we try to bring, for instance, poems, or try to understand, if you can understand how poetry is interpreted, right? So I guess because we live in a community or society where all types of people are required and needed, this exam helps us to assess our candidates on these dimensions.
So both IQ and EQ is being tested by XAT exam.
IQ, EQ, obviously left brain, right brain. So whatever you get tilted to, that's why it's more comprehensive.
Okay. So we have the essay writing also, right?
Correct.
During that examinations.
True, true.
So, but essay writing marks or whatever are not being considered for the shortlist for the interviews, is what I get. Or so, what exactly is the role of essay writing in that exam, and how does it affect, let's say, the candidate selection for interview and during interview?
So percentile is based on your verbal, quant, and decision making scores,
Correct.
right? The general knowledge section and essay writing section, their scores are used only after you finish your interview process, right? So whatever score you get after finishing your interview process, these two scores are added to that score, and that helps us in understanding which student actually stands out. So these aspects, but these two scores are only used by XLRI Delhi and XLRI Jamshedpur.
Okay.
So other associate schools, they only take the aptitude of or the scores of verbal aptitude or VLR, and we call it quant, the data interpretation, and then decision making.
So from what I understand, so GK and SA component is just will be used only by XLR Delhi and Jamshedpur, and other for other colleges that they are applying for, only the DM quant and verbal
Verbal,
part will be submitted. Correct.
correct, right, right.
So speaking of college, right? Are there any new colleges that are being onboarded into the ZAT process, or so this time we had IFT and this getting in the CAT score. So are there any new colleges that are being onboarded for the ZAT process?
So we are trying to reach out to as many colleges as we can. If you go to our ZAT website, so zatonline.ac.in, there's a list of associate members clearly given. This year we have added around 15 new colleges this year we have added, and we are consistently working on adding up new colleges, and we are explaining what we are trying to assess. So it's helping us out. We are trying to reach out to colleges which are no more taking, for instance, they are no more conducting their own exams. We are reaching out to those colleges as well, and those colleges are positive. So we will add a few more every year. We'll try to keep increasing the number of college associate colleges, and we are sharing their information on our platforms. We are sharing their information on our website, ZAD website. We are also sharing their information on the ads we are actually giving on different platforms. We are promoting our associate colleges as well.
Sure, that's good news. I think for the candidates applying for ZAT. So, for the candidate applying for in the ZAT, right? So, in the application form, do they have to specifically apply for XLRI, Jamshedpur, and Delhi, or do they have to apply it after the in a different form process?
So, so what we do is we are charging students program wise.
Okay,
So there is a program called Business Management Program, which is in Delhi also and Jamshedpur also.
correct.
But students will have to only pay for once. Similarly, we have a Human Resource Management Program, which is only in Jamshedpur. So for that program also, they will have to pay. Okay. So it's
Okay.
not like you have to apply for Delhi or Jamshedpur separately. You apply for a program, and then you will be shortlisted based on your score.
So when you are speaking about ZAT exam, so you have touched upon the point of diversity, how ZAT exam will support diversity, uh, different candidates from different parts of the spectrum, right? So beside the ZAT exam, right? So is there any additional weightage that is being given for, let's say, for females or non-engineering or different genre of students for in the selection process for XLR and XLR at
Yes,
Delhi
so
and Jamshedpur?
we try to accommodate, for instance, women. We try to accommodate more number of non-engineers along with engineers. But I will be very clear on this that we don't compromise on merit, right? We look forward to good students who can actually do great things in the business world for their companies. Ultimately, it will feed into our nation building process, right? So we want to choose right leaders. So at the end of the day, we are all guided at Accelerate by meritocracy. But definitely, we try to support people who belong to, for instance, not the mainstream, who are from, for instance, the underprivileged sections, or for instance, gender we take care of. When it comes to engineering and non-engineering, that also we take care of. But at the end of the day, we are guided by meritocracy.
Okay. So, CAT was done just 2 weeks back, right, sir? So, and most of the students had some issues with CAT, right? Like some of the students did not get the center of their choice, or at least the first 5 centers of their choice. They got 6 center of their choice. And last year we had CAT, some questions which were wrong in CAT, right? And this year also there were some students who feel that the answer key released by the CAT is not according to what it should be. So given the backdrop of CAT and ZAT, I think also last year had to release the key twice with a revised key, right, sir? So given this backdrop, so what steps are you taking as a ZAT convener to ensure that the students have a very good experience with ZAT 2024?
So thank you for this question. You have asked two important questions. Your first question is that if I am choosing a particular center, right, what is the possibility that I will get that
Correct.
center, right? See,
Correct.
we all have to understand one thing. See, like for instance, if I am conducting an exam, I will not take the name of any institute, right? I am conducting an exam. I'm not actually controlling everything. I have to depend on other agencies to help me out, right?
Correct.
And there is a limited infrastructure in every city, right? So any school or any agency, if they are conducting an exam, they face this problem. If number goes up, obviously students will have to struggle, right? If I am from Delhi, another person is from Delhi, we all are from Delhi, and there's a good number from Delhi, but I cannot increase the number of centers overnight. So obviously people from Delhi may go to Noida, may go to, for instance, Gurgaon or nearby places, right? So that possibility is always there. But at so we are trying to do this, that mostly, for instance, for students, we would try to give the choices they have kept on the top, right? Like if they have given a particular city as the first choice, we try to accommodate that request. But you know because that number is going up, so sometimes those choices are not met, but definitely we try to make the experience of students more, like we want to make the process more smoother. We want them to have a pleasant experience. There is no intent to disturb students, because we completely empathize with students. We understand a student who is preparing for 7 8 months, for instance, we cannot disturb that students on the last day by suddenly changing a center or putting that person in a very remote place. That is never an objective, right? And I completely respect, I personally completely respect the kind of efforts these students put, right? I'm in many forums, and when I read their comments and the way they talk, I completely empathize with them. So there is no intent that they should get disturbed, they should be just left on their own and some random remote center is given. We try to make their experience pleasant, we try to make the processes smooth, and we try to stick to what choices they put across. But yes, sometimes the agencies which are helping us out, they have their own constraints. So they request us that if, because there are limited number of centers, so can a few be moved to, for instance, this city or that city, depending upon the number in a particular area or region, right? This is the first part. Second part is when you asked about this question related to the, for instance, the discrepancies or the problems in questions, right? So I will talk about XAT because I conduct XAT. I, I'm not an authority to comment on any other exam. Obviously, last year there were some problems with a few questions, but you all should understand that in that way, XAT, the XLRI or the XAMI, the association which conducts XAT, we strongly believe in transparency. If there is a problem in our question paper, and if there is an issue in a particular question and that has been flagged, we definitely take care of. And if it's a genuine mistake, we give marks to students. And that's what we tried to do last year. Because we know that students should not face problems because of us. But again, we try to make sure that mistakes should not happen. Right. But we can put our 99%, right? 1% is always controlled by somebody, right? So mistakes may happen, but we are ready to rectify. If we cannot rectify, we want to give advantage to our students if there's a problem in a paper.
So, a follow-up question. So, when you're saying that giving advantage to students, right? So, the advantage is being given to all the students. So, how exactly is it an advantage to student?
I agree that with those who have not attempted, they also get an advantage. Right. I completely agree with you. But then what is the way out? That is the only way out. Right. Either we can actually cancel that question, so don't give marks to anybody, or we give marks to everybody.
Yep.
But both these solutions actually are doing some injustice to those who have either attempted or not attempted, right? So I know, I completely agree with you, and that is why we are trying to make a paper with no errors so that everybody gets an equal opportunity.
Okay. So, we have a question from a student who is saying that is ZAT does ZAT have more competition than CAT? So, not in the total number of students, but the quality of the students that are applying for ZAT.
So when you say competition means what, right? I just want to understand.
So, let's say, as in the students, the average marks of a student who is applying for CAT and compared to average marks of student who is applying for ZAT, is it higher? Like, are more prepared candidates applying for ZAT as compared to CAT?
That is difficult to say. I will be very honest. This is a very difficult question to answer. But I cannot compare again comment on the other exams. But for that, we know that like I will give you an example. Lots of our other associate schools, you can go to their websites also. They give more weightage to the scores of XAT over the scores of other exam students take.
Okay.
Right, like for instance, our if our exam score is our student has, like in XAT, a student has scored around 75 percentile, right? So they will actually pick this student over somebody who has got, for instance, 80 percentile or 90 percentile in other exams, and that information is public actually. So it is given on their website. So there is no comparison in exams because other exams test different things. We try to test different things. So obviously, if you are taking XAT and you are doing well, it helps the schools to assess you better. So that is the reason that that score is given more weightage. When it comes to competition, I would say yes, students who appear for that, I cannot tell you the exact data, but mostly students do well, right? Especially at the top level,
Correct.
right? So they actually perform well. And I guess the reason for it is that we conduct our exam in January and they get enough time to prepare. But then, some students, they prepare for other exams equally, right?
Correct.
But we have realized that those who are in the at the top level, they are mostly good. So
That's
you can
very
call it a
good to hear.
competition.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we have around 1 month to that. So
Mm.
are there any tips for the students what they should be doing in this 1 month?
Yeah, exactly 1 month, I guess. So,
Exactly 1 month, sir.
right. So I would say that first is don't panic, right? I know that, lots of students are getting panicked because some exams have passed, some exams are there in December itself. Right? That is coming in January, and there are some exams post that as well. Don't panic. Stick to your strengths, right? If you are already preparing, then you will have to add a few more verticals to your kitty, in the sense you will have to prepare a little bit more about GK, right? Some current affairs, right? Some regular static GK questions. At the same time, you will have to practice more of decision making section. So I would say that you continue with your preparation for the preparation which you are doing for other exams as Accelerate that or Examis that. I would say that you also try to practice or go through our old question papers, right? That will give you some understanding of what kind of questions come in that, right? The kind of questions we give in decision making section, or the kind of questions we give in quant section or verbal section, because we are not going to give any surprises
Okay.
this year,
Okay.
right? We'll try to stick to our plan. We will try to stick to the kind of questions we ask, right? And to bring more transparency, even I have clarified in that overview, which has been actually uploaded on our website, that overview 2024, that there will not be any surprises. We'll stick to our plan. So if you go through the question papers, try to understand what is getting asked and try to understand the objective of a question. That will help you prepare well,
Okay.
right? So mostly if you look at our questions, very few questions you will find, for instance in quant section, very few questions you will find where you need to remember a particular formula to solve it, right? Questions mostly are based on if you can think and apply. Even without knowing a formula you can solve the question, right? If you're high on
Correct.
mathematical skills.
Concept based questions.
Yes. So that is the idea. We never try to test your memory. We never try to test your knowledge. We try to understand your aptitude. It's an aptitude test, right? So I would say that practice, practice, and practice. Go
Okay.
through our papers. Try to understand what do we do. We develop a clarity. This year we had three mocks, right? So same mock we gave opened it for three times because we wanted our students to get familiarized with what we are expecting, so that when you appear for the exam you don't have this fear that that is very tough, which is a wrong perception, right? You go with an understanding that I've already taken mock, I know how it works, right? And then take your time. We give you enough time. It's like a test match, right? Enjoy your journey there. Sit with the question, understand it, apply your knowledge, but
Correct.
plan well.
So it's a 3 hour exam, and then student should use the 3 hours wisely for the exam.
Yes,
That's
wisely. Yes, yes, yes. I would say
so.
that we don't test speed, but we definitely test your analytical skills.
Sure. So the takeaway is that XAT is not going to be any different from what it was previously, and
Yes,
following the previous papers will give the students an idea of what to expect in XAT 2024.
correct.
So the only
Only
I think the only difference this year was the increase of one question in DM. So last year it was 21 questions in DM, and this year it will be 22
if
questions.
you so in overview we have written about 21. So when it is about 21, sometimes there will be one additional question, sometimes there will be no additional question.
Okay.
Right? It depends again, right? So
Yes.
there is no hard and fast rule that there will be only 21. So about means around 21. Sometimes you can find only 20 questions, right? It depends.
Okay.
So that is the idea. But again, I would say that if you are solving DM section or DM question papers, please don't develop this understanding that this is how DMs have to be handled. It's like learning something which has already happened in the past. But when you are going to solve or to handle that, it will be a very new scenario. But that past knowledge will guide you, but it will not be replicated in this scenario,
That
right?
sure. So there is one question. We'll take just two questions from the students. So one question is regarding GK. So for past how many months should the current affairs be studied for the GK and ZAT?
See, by the regular definition of current affairs, anything which has happened like recently, you have to be aware of that, right? So I guess the understanding of current affairs is already there among students. So just skim through. You don't have to be very thorough. And if you look at our questions also, no, they're not very difficult questions, right? Anything which is happening around you and you are aware it's current affair, right? Like for instance, G20 happened in India. Right. When you are living in Delhi, you know G20 has happened. You see G20 everywhere, right? You see the G20 happening in different places. So you should know, for instance, something about G20. I'm just giving an random example, right? But that is what it is, right? So anything which is happening, anything which has happened, right, of late, and it is affecting us, obviously it should be a part of current affairs.
Okay, sure. And I think this question is specific to XLRA. So what is the weightage for past ACATs given for XLRA?
See, we want a student who is holistic, right?
Right.
We don't run after those who are, for instance, very high on acats but very bad in other domains, or very good in other domains and very bad in academics. Right? Anybody who strikes a balance is actually a candidate for XLRI.
Okay.
Right? We don't follow a strict policy of sticking to this side or that side. We try to strike a balance. We want the best student who can contribute really smartly in our classes, and when he or she goes and joins a company, he or she becomes an amazing leader for that company and acknowledges what XLRI did to them, that person. Right? At the same time, that person does well for our nation, because we all are in the process of nation building.
Sure. I think that's for the questions from students. And thank you so much, sir. Any parting remarks for the students and for ZAT 2024?
So the parting remark would be keep practicing, right? And whatever confusions, whatever myths you carry about that, before believing those myths, please go and take the test on your own. There are lots of mock test series available on lots of platforms. Our old papers are available. Please go and attempt those papers and then decide on what is difficult, what is not so difficult. Normally, you all believe that is difficult because it is different. But if something is different, doesn't mean it is difficult. You all are doing lots of things. You all are handling, for instance, in college, lots of things along with academics, right? You do, for instance, you participate in committees, you get into quizzes, you write papers, lots of things you do. And those students we want on our campus who can actually perform not only well in academics, they can also perform well, for instance, in case competitions. They can actually participate in writing research papers, they can write cases, and they can also do wonders in companies where they go for summers. And at the end, they also get placed in amazing companies and contribute to those companies in a best way, right?
Okay.
So I guess stay calm, keep putting your efforts. Whatever you can control, try to control. Put your efforts. What you cannot control, don't get worried about that, right? Because when we think about something, it's not just the problem, but lots of ancillary related issues or ancillary issues. They create confusion or anxiety.
Understood.
Right. So just focus on what you can control or what is in your control. What is not in your control, just just ignore it for a while.
Okay. I think that's a very great advice to the students, and hope the students will follow and use this 1 month effectively for the ZAT 2024. And thank you so much, sir, for joining us and giving your valuable advice for the students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shrikant. Thank you, and all the best to the students who are here. Look forward to meeting you either at XLRI or our other associate B schools. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.